Sarah Chen stares at her phone screen in disbelief. She just delivered Thai food to a customer in downtown Chicago, and the DoorDash app clearly showed a $12 tip when she accepted the order. But her earnings summary tells a different story. She received exactly $2.50. When Sarah contacts support, they give her the same scripted response she's heard dozens of times. The customer reduced their tip after delivery. But here's the problem with that explanation. The customer, confused by Sarah's follow-up message, sends her a screenshot of their order receipt. The tip amount? Still $12. They never changed anything. Sarah isn't some rookie driver having a bad day. She's been documenting this pattern for months. 47 separate instances where promised tips simply vanished into thin air. She has screenshots of the original tip amounts, screenshots of her reduced payouts, and, most damning of all, screenshots from customers proving they never modified their tips. Think about that for a second. 47 times. That's not a glitch or an isolated technical error. That's nearly $400 in stolen wages from one driver alone. But Sarah's experience isn't unique. Across driver forums and social media groups, thousands of DoorDash drivers are reporting identical scenarios. The same phantom tip reductions. The same customer service excuses. The same pattern of money disappearing between the promise and the payout. You're watching systematic wage theft happening in real time, dressed up as a technical issue or customer behavior. DoorDash shows drivers one amount to get them to accept orders, then pays out significantly less, banking on drivers being too busy or too defeated to fight every missing dollar. But this tip discrepancy was just the surface of a much larger deception that internal documents would soon expose. The smoking gun arrived in the form of a USB drive handed to TechCrunch reporters by a former DoorDash software engineer who couldn't stomach what the company was doing to its drivers. The leaked documents contained 3 months of internal Slack conversations, engineering tickets, and product roadmap discussions that revealed something far worse than random tip theft. DoorDash wasn't just accidentally losing tips. They were systematically redirecting them. The engineering tickets are absolutely damning. Project names like tip allocation optimization and driver payment reconciliation sound boring enough, but the implementation details tell a different story. Engineers were literally building features to reroute customer tips away from drivers and into company revenue streams. One ticket from March 2023 explicitly states the goal: reduce driver overpayment incidents by 23% through dynamic tip allocation. Driver overpayment incidents. Read that phrase again. DoorDash executives were calling customer tips overpayments to drivers. But the Slack channels are where the real contempt shows through. Product managers casually discussing how to optimize tip flow while maintaining driver satisfaction metrics. One conversation thread reveals managers celebrating a successful test that redirected $2.3 million in customer tips over a 2-week period without significant driver complaints. $2.3 million in 2 weeks from one experimental program. The leaked communications show senior executives were fully aware drivers were being systematically underpaid. They knew customers intended their tips to go directly to drivers. They built the infrastructure to intercept those tips anyway, then programmed customer service bots to blame phantom customer modifications whenever drivers complained. This wasn't some accidental coding error or isolated incident. This was corporate policy implemented at the highest levels. DoorDash had engineered a system to steal wages from their most vulnerable workers while maintaining plausible deniability through technical smokescreens. But even with this damning evidence, DoorDash needed scapegoats when drivers started organizing and demanding answers. When drivers started organizing and sharing their stolen tip screenshots, DoorDash needed someone else to blame. Enter the most convenient scapegoat possible: the restaurants themselves. Internal customer service training materials leaked to Bloomberg revealed the exact scripts DoorDash agents were instructed to use. When drivers complained about missing tips, agents were told to respond: the restaurant is experiencing processing delays with tip adjustments. This may impact your final payout amount. Notice how that's worded. It implies the restaurant actively modified the tip while giving DoorDash plausible cover. But here's the thing about those restaurant processing delays. They don't exist. Maria Gonzalez owns 3 Mexican restaurants in Austin and has been partnered with DoorDash for 4 years. When Vice reporters showed her dozens of DoorDash emails claiming she had requested tip reductions on various orders, she was genuinely confused. She'd never seen these emails before. More importantly, she'd never had access to any tip modification system in the first place. DoorDash doesn't give restaurant partners the ability to adjust driver tips after orders are placed. The system literally doesn't exist on their end. Yet automated emails were being generated claiming restaurants like Maria's were making tip adjustment requests they couldn't possibly make. When restaurant owners started disputing these false claims, DoorDash's response was swift and brutal. Maria received a partnership review notice within 48 hours of questioning the tip modification emails. Other small business owners reported being temporarily suspended or having their commission rates increased after pushing back on phantom tip adjustments they never requested. The leaked documents revealed DoorDash support agents were actually creating fake restaurant responses to justify tip reductions to drivers. Restaurants would supposedly confirm they had processing issues or had requested tip modifications, conversations that never happened with people who never had access to make such requests. While restaurants took the heat for DoorDash's systematic wage theft, investigators were uncovering evidence that this tip interception operation was far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. Data scientists at UC Berkeley weren't looking to expose DoorDash when they started analyzing gig economy pay patterns. They were simply trying to understand wage volatility across different platforms. What they found instead was evidence of algorithmic wage theft operating at industrial scale. The research team analyzed 50,000 DoorDash orders across 12 major markets over 6 months. The patterns they discovered weren't random glitches or isolated incidents. They were systematic, predictable, and profitable. Tips above $8 were reduced by an average of 40% across every single market they studied. Not 35% in some cities and 45% in others. 40% like clockwork, suggesting a programmed parameter built directly into DoorDash's payment system. But the algorithm was far more sophisticated than simple percentage skimming. The Berkeley analysis revealed it specifically targeted high-tip orders during peak hours when drivers were busiest and least likely to scrutinize their payouts. Orders during lunch and dinner rushes saw tip reductions at nearly triple the rate of off-peak deliveries. The machine learning component is what makes this truly sinister. The algorithm was analyzing driver behavior patterns to predict which drivers were least likely to complain about missing wages. New drivers, drivers with multiple platform accounts, and drivers in markets with high turnover rates were disproportionately targeted. Researchers calculated that this tip skimming operation generated approximately $127 million annually for DoorDash by systematically redistributing customer tips away from the drivers who earned them. $127 million. That's not some accidental coding error or processing delay. That's a business model built on wage theft, optimized through machine learning to maximize profit extraction while minimizing driver pushback. The sophistication of this operation raises a terrifying question. If DoorDash built an algorithm this advanced to steal from drivers, how many other gig economy companies are running similar schemes right under our noses? Here's where the story gets even more infuriating. DoorDash isn't some rogue company that stumbled into wage theft. They're following a playbook that's become standard practice across the entire gig economy. Uber Eats faced nearly identical tip theft allegations in 2019. Then again in 2021 when drivers discovered the company was using tips to subsidize base pay guarantees. Same playbook. Promise drivers one amount, deliver significantly less, blame technical glitches when caught. Instacart got so brazen with their tip appropriation that they ended up settling a $46 million lawsuit in 2022. $46 million they had to pay back to shoppers and drivers after systematically redirecting customer tips into company revenue streams for years. The National Employment Law Project has been documenting this systematic wage theft across food delivery platforms, and their findings are staggering. An estimated 2.3 million gig workers are affected by tip theft annually, with delivery drivers losing an average of $2,400 per year in stolen gratuities. That's rent money. That's grocery money. That's money these workers earn through their labor, stolen through algorithmic sleight of hand. Labor advocacy groups have identified the exact same patterns DoorDash uses. Tip skimming during peak hours, targeting vulnerable worker populations, blaming phantom technical issues when confronted. It's like these companies are sharing a manual on how to systematically rob their workforce. The Federal Trade Commission finally took notice and opened a formal investigation into gig economy tip practices earlier this year. But here's what's absolutely maddening. These companies have been operating these tip theft schemes for years while the FTC investigated other priorities. Workers are losing billions annually to wage theft that's been hiding in plain sight, dressed up as technological innovation. Every time you tip a driver through one of these apps, there's a systematic process designed to intercept that money before it reaches the person who earned it. As regulatory pressure mounts, Workers and consumers are finding ways to fight back. But workers weren't taking this systematic theft lying down. The reckoning arrived with the force of a legal freight train. Shannon Liss Riordan, the employment attorney who'd already taken down Uber and Lyft in previous class action battles, filed a bombshell lawsuit in federal court representing 2.5 million DoorDash drivers. The lawsuit seeks $850 million in damages. That's the estimated total amount DoorDash stole through their tip interception scheme. The complaint includes those leaked internal emails showing DoorDash executives literally joking about their creative accounting methods for driver payments. One executive wrote, "Who needs tips when you have algorithms, right?" Another bragged about finding new revenue streams in plain sight. These people were laughing about stealing wages from workers barely making minimum wage. California's Attorney General launched a criminal investigation into DoorDash's tip theft practices, treating it as what it actually is: organized theft. When a company systematically redirects $127 million in worker wages, that's not a civil matter anymore. That's potentially racketeering. The stock market delivered its own verdict. DoorDash shares plummeted 12% the day the tip theft revelations broke, wiping out $1.8 billion in company value. Investors suddenly realized they'd been funding a business model built on literal wage theft. Drivers organized coordinated strikes across major metropolitan areas, refusing orders during peak hours when DoorDash's tip skimming algorithm was most active. The strikes hit DoorDash where it hurts most their ability to fulfill orders during their most profitable hours. The company that thought they could steal wages through algorithmic complexity is now facing lawsuits, criminal investigations, and organized worker resistance. Their sophisticated theft operation is crumbling under the weight of evidence they stupidly documented in their own communications. Justice moves slowly, but it's finally moving. DoorDash built a machine to steal from workers. Now that machine is being dismantled piece by piece. You don't have to be a passive victim in this systematic wage theft operation. There are concrete steps you can take right now to protect the drivers delivering your food and hold these companies accountable for their theft. Screenshot everything. Before you hit that order button, take a screenshot showing your tip amount. Then screenshot your final receipt after delivery completion. These timestamped images become legal evidence when drivers report tip discrepancies. The Driver Justice Coalition has created a tip tracking app that automatically captures these screenshots and helps drivers document wage theft for potential legal cases. Cash tips bypass the algorithms entirely. When you hand a driver actual money, DoorDash can't intercept it, reduce it, or reallocate it through their payment systems. Even a $5 bill ensures that driver receives exactly what you intended to give them. Report tip theft immediately through multiple channels. Don't just complain to DoorDash customer service. They're trained to deflect and delay. File complaints with your state's Attorney General office, the Federal Trade Commission, and local labor advocacy groups. Each report creates documentation that prosecutors and class action attorneys can use to build cases against these companies. Support restaurants that offer their own delivery services. When you order directly from restaurants instead of through third-party apps, more money goes to the business and their drivers avoid the systematic wage theft built into gig platforms. Many restaurants are now offering competitive delivery options that completely bypass these predatory middlemen. The fight against gig economy exploitation is far from over, and your awareness is the first step toward real change. Every screenshot you take, every cash tip you leave, every direct order you place strikes a blow against companies that built billion-dollar valuations on stolen wages. These algorithms depend on your ignorance and inaction to keep functioning. Now you know better, and you can do better.